Good morning, everyone. I appreciate everyone attending. I'll try to keep this as short as I can and still give you all the information necessary. Um, Today, we're going to talk about the ePart setup screen. The reason that we're doing this webinar is so everybody can be at least somewhat knowledgeable when a customer calls or if there's a specific issue. Uh, this this page has actually evolved from the setup page for ePart to what's now become a setup page for multiple e-products. We've decided quite some time ago that it was best to have one single repository for all the settings, and that's what this page has evolved to. So what we're going to talk about today briefly is the products that are linked and the part of this screen that affects each product. Basically, the main things that are controlled by this screen is ePart, which is probably 90% of it, eOffice, which has some settings that we'll go into, and eSales BI. eDelivery is connected to eOffice more than anything, so there's no real setups for eDelivery here. But basically, we're going to go into the page. Every store needs to have an ePart ID that is involved with any of the e-products. If it's a multi-store, then the host and all the remotes need to be assigned an ID, and our administrator, Diana, will chain the stores together in the remote stores to the master store. There will be one master store for every company. So when you come to this page, it's setup.epartconnection.com. This is where you put in the store ID. I put in my document the universal password, VOCULO53. That password will get you into any account. So once you go into the ePart setup screen, this is what you see. This is the main screen, the front page. This is what we call the store name and address page. The first thing you'll see at the top of the page is the store banner. What the store banner is this section right here, which is basically the customer's name and address. You can add to it. You can change the font color. It's controlled by simple HTML right here below. If you have questions on how to set that up, Karen Cruz has become very adept at doing this, and she can help you with this HTML. The next thing you'll see is the banner ad. The banner ad is what appears over to the right. The banner ad can be a GIF, this is an example of a GIF. It can be static pictures, it can be information, it can be anything you want. That's what we call the banner ad. And again, this is the simple HTML for that banner ad. The website address is here because when they click on either their address or the banner ad, it will direct them to that website that you have specified there in that page. Uh, the theme setting basically has to do with the colors. You'll notice here that we have an orange and a white. You'll notice that the buttons are orange, and then the white section is down below. So this is where you set up the theme colors for the page. The next thing we're going to talk about is email setup. This is very important. Email setup has to do with eOffice primarily, and somewhat to do with ePart. When an installer sends an email to the jobber, it's configured here. If you have an SMTP server, you would put your SMTP settings in this area. Other than that, those are all optional fields. It states that they're optional fields. Your to email address is where the email goes when your customers email you from ePart. In ePart, there's a section on the Help tab, which allows the customer to talk to the jobber. So they would click on Send Email and Help, and this is where you would put the text for the email. So that is what the to email address for your customers. The from email address is the email that the customers see when they get their statement notifications or their invoice copies. In the document that I sent out, there's quite a bit there to do with the guidelines for these emails. Kim Kozera was kind enough to research this for us and put this little part together. Read through these guidelines and try to set them up like that. We have the potential of issues with spam because some of our customers are going to want to use these emails for marketing. We have to be very careful with that, and there's some suggested text in here that would help combat that. So basically, you have your from email address rules. I'm not going to read over these, but you guys can read them at your leisure. But try to read through those and see if you can understand it. If you can't understand it, then please let me know, and we'll go into it in more depth. The next section is the email options. What the email options is this basically defines what the customer gets. They can either get a notification or a PDF of the statement. I don't suggest that you check both because they'll get two emails. This setting, the next setting is email text invoice and email original invoice. That's not the recommended setting. They should have one or the other checked. Most systems that generate PDF invoices are going to send the original invoice. And the final option is one that's been added lately was email scanned invoice. Customers that are scanning signatures, quite often their customers only want to see the invoice that's signed. If that's the case, then you would check email scanned invoice. You can check multiples as this setting has, or you can check one or the other. So that's the purpose for email options. The next section is miscellaneous options. The master ePart password is for systems that have many customers that their salesman will need to go into. This is a setting that's used for eSales BI. Quite often, a jobber does not assign a password to every single one of his customers. If that's the case, then they would set up a master password. So when the salesman goes to a customer and logs into ePart, it'll be able to go in, even if that customer was either not set up for ePart or has never used ePart, or we have some jobbers that are using eSales, but they may be using NextPart as their internet ordering portal. If that's the case, then the only person using ePart would be their salesman. So this would get the salesman into any customer's account. Limited mode password is a password that when a person logs into this setup page using that limited password, they're only going to have extremely limited access. They're going to have sales reports and a couple things that maybe a salesman might want to look at, but they won't have access to all of the options that we're looking at right now. The next selection is the eOffice ePart ID. What that's for is customers that have a central location that they want their customers to log into. You would put that in here. Remote stores that have multiple remotes and one master, you would put the master store in here. The next options are strictly ePart options. Alternates, you check this box if you do not want to show alternates in the catalog. You check the next box if you don't want to show alternates in stock check. You check the next box if you don't want to show alternates in the part category section or the non-catalog section. The next choice is very important. This is sort catalog by part description. What this does is instead of looking at the filters as an example, where you have a heading called FRAM and you may have a heading called Wix, under FRAM you'll see air filter, oil filter, fuel filter, etc. If you check this box, you'll see the sections. You'll see oil filter and you'll see all the different brands. You'll see the FRAM, the Wix, the Purolator. You'll see all the brands in one section. This is to sort by description. The jobber has the option of allowing his customers to do returns. This does not do a return ticket. This sends nothing more than a text invoice to the jobber. When the invoice prints on the printer, it's text only. It shows the parts that the installer wants to return, and it tells the jobber, I'd like to return these parts. So the jobber would then have to create a return ticket and possibly send the driver to pick it out. Group checkboxes in catalog. What that is that allows you to choose multiple categories at one time. This one is, if you check as an example, ignition and engine filters, you'll notice that there's little check boxes here. You can check multiple things and see those when you do the lookup simply by checking the box and showing the groups. So that's the capability, that gives you the capability of showing those check boxes. If this is unchecked, then the customer can only pick one group at a time. Uh, enable secondary lines. Secondary lines will basically show the customer a button once you start looking up parts. It'll show the customer a button to look at secondary lines. These are lines that you may buy out or you may not stock. So this is your show secondary lines button, and you can turn that on and off. Um, you can disable the OptiCat. OptiCat is the manufacturer's content catalog, which is here in ePart. This is a catalog that is not connected to inventory. However, for those of you that haven't looked at this, it's a very good catalog for the customers to use as a reference. And what it does is gives you the capability of looking up USA, Canada, or Mexico vehicles. You have several categories here that you can look up parts for. It's very, very good catalog for somebody that wants just a little bit more than what the ePart or what the Epicor catalog offers. And you can disable that if you don't want your customers to use it. Lost sale reason codes. There's the capability of allowing the customers to record lost sales. You can create the reasons that they choose from: insufficient quantity, price, wrong manufacturer, any type of reason code that you have. The lost sale email notices. What this does is this tells the system where to send an email when somebody records a lost sale. The advantage to this is somebody in your company or in the jobber's company will get an email right away when somebody records a lost sale. Fill policy. Fill policy is where you would put, when they finalize an order, you can say, we don't accept back orders or no back orders or anything like that you want to make a condition for ordering. And then the start page, when somebody logs in or when their installer customers log in, this is where they can pick the page that they go to immediately when they log in. The default page is the catalog, which is this page right here. So as soon as they log in, they come to this page, or you can choose the part categories page or hot links, favorites, stock check. You can have it go wherever you want it to go. We have some customers that don't use the catalog, and they'll go straight to stock check or favorites. They have different uses for ePart for their customers, and this may help their customers go directly to the page they want. The next section is time zone. This is important to set because of the time on the invoices and so forth. So make sure that the customer has his correct time zone set. The next section is the purchase order part order policy. What I recommend on this, all of these following sections are pretty self-explanatory. It's best if you read it and just go through it. It's very intuitive and it's very well explained, each one. Any part number. This dictates what the customer can order. If an example, the part number must be stocked or have sufficient quantity. If the customer chooses a part that's not stocked or doesn't have quantity, when they get ready to finalize the order, those line items are going to be shaded yellow, and there will be an explanation underneath that say order time may be affected because it's a non-stock part or whatever it is. The next section is your display option. This is the way for jobbers that are maybe what we call a broker. They may not have a very large inventory, but they want to sell everything. An example would be a jobber that's in a metropolitan area that has multiple warehouses around him. He can get any part within a very short period of time. If that's the case, then he would want to display all parts. Then the quantity option, we'll get to that in a second, but he would want to display all parts. You can set it to display only the parts you stock or in-file parts, or you can set it to even more reduced to display only parts with positive quantity, or again, in-file parts. Some systems, there's a difference between in-file parts and stock parts. A part may be in your system, but if it has no order point, and no quantity, it's not considered a stock part, but it is considered an in-file part. Override will just allow the customer to see all those parts, and there will be a button that they can look at that says display all parts. The quantity option is important. This is where somebody that may not have a huge inventory but wants their customers to order anything that comes up in the catalog. This is where you would check show actual quantity or per car quantity or vehicle quantity, whichever is greater. If the vehicle takes 2, it'll show 2 if they have 0. If they have 3, it'll show 3. So the quantity option is important, again, depending on the use of the person using it. The third option is always show the per car quantity and hide the true quantity on hand. This is probably the least often used, but some people still like to use this. The next section is the multi-store location. There's a column that shows quantity on hand for other stores. This dictates what goes into that column. This changes the header to where it says warehouse quantity. This is the total of all locations except the one you're logged into. These are for multi-store companies. The next one, it changes the header to say quantity other locations. Same basic rule, just a different header. The next one is quantity on hand, all locations. This one shows the total of all your locations, including the one that they're logged into. Then the other option is don't display it. If it's a single store customer that has no remote stores, they would check this one. It just leaves that column off. And the last option is warehouse quantity, which is just another header for the column. Again, it displays a total of all your locations, including the one you're logged into. The next sections are Aconex related. This has to do with people that are connected via Aconex, systems that are not Autolog in-house systems such as Prisms and Eagles and so forth. They would use the trading partners table for credentialing, but basically this is some settings for the Aconex options. The next thing I want to look at is in the blue menu ribbon. As I get to settings that involve other products, I'll specify that. The first one we have is manage logo. Very simply, you can put a logo here for your web logo, which means anytime a customer accesses ePart from the browser, they'll see this logo. The next choice is edit your mobile logo. If the jobber has customers that are using ePart mobile or any sort of a mobile device, then they will be able to see a different logo. You could change the logo. There is an ePart app. There's an eSales app. This is the logo that would show up on those apps. Delivery options. This is where you set your delivery options. If you put anything in this list at all, it will override the default table. If you leave this list completely empty, it puts the default table as the delivery options that the customer chooses when they're doing an order. So you can customize your delivery options, and if you put one option in here, that's the only one they're going to see. It overrides all of the defaults. The MCL table, this is important for people that are on Epicor catalog, people that are not on Epicor catalog on their management system, and they're using ePart. As an example, a NextPart user that is going to use ePart just for their sales guys. If they want their sales guys to look up parts, then they need to edit this table and assign lines. I'm not going to go into it in any great detail, but you can upload your MCL table from the management system if you're currently using Epicor on your management system, or you can edit the table manually. If you edit the table manually and look at a summary, it's going to show you all the lines you have set up to display in catalog. You can edit these, or you can add a new line simply by finding the line. You go to the letter, you pick the line, and you choose the option. You put your line code in and you give it a priority. The MCL table is important to users that are either using it internally or possibly letting their customers use it. Sometimes customers will change the MCL table on their management system, and when they do that, it's very simple to come here and re-upload it, and it'll make the modification in ePart. The next section is catalog manufacturer names. If you want to change the name of a manufacturer as it shows in the catalog, you do it here. You put in your line code and you put the name you want to display. It's very simple. You can add a prefix or a suffix to a part number. An example would be a Napa guy. Napa uses common aftermarket numbering, but oftentimes they'll add a prefix or a suffix to the number. So you can do that here by line code, and that way the number will show quantity and it'll show what's in your inventory. If you have a number that your inventory contains a prefix or a suffix and you don't set that here, the best you can do is get the root number, and it's not going to show any quantity. Non-catalog parts categories. This section is something that really would take a complete webinar by itself, but what this allows you to do is set up your non-catalog parts and accessories section where you have what we'll call a custom catalog. We have users that sell, as an example, transmission parts. They may want to set up their own catalog by brand. They might have Chevy, then Ford, and so forth. That will give them the ability of creating their own catalog. If you create your catalog and you create bumper kits, this one doesn't have any parts in bumper kits, but basically the subcategory or the category can have subcategories. You can have electrical, then you can drill down to connectors, and what it'll do is it'll show you the list that you've created. So this page is to give you the capability of creating all that. It is importable. You can do everything on a spreadsheet and import it. Again, this will require a little bit more intense training. This page is relatively complex. It can be figured out. It's not that hard, but if you have any specific questions on setting up a customer, you can call myself, or you can call Karen Cruz. She's very good at this. So that's the non-catalog part category section. The next section is hot links. What hot links is when you look at the all these boxes on the side, those are called your hot links. Basically, this is what the customer sees when they come in, and you set these up to go to web pages. You can set them up to go anywhere. If I click on the military surplus one, it's not set up exactly where it should go, but we clicked on AC kits. You can create a hot link to go to a specific page in non-catalog. This one is set up to go to AC kit catalog. So that's the purpose of setting up your hot links. Basically, you have options when you put a hot link in. You can go to a predefined website, or you can go to a category group, or you can go to a custom website. A custom website is any URL that you want it to go to. The predefined website is very few options. You can also change the color and the size of the text. This is the text size medium, and the text color is red. The background color is blue. You can delete it, you can move it, so you can reorganize your buttons on your hot link page or on your hot links. I can move these buttons up or down, and you'll see that the effect of changing the color of the text and the color of the box. We normally don't recommend that people do as many as you see here because it kind of overrides the page. But again, this is our demo site, and we just wanted people to see what you can do. The next section is customer options. This page is very, very important. This page is now primarily for eSales BI. This is where we get the information for credentialing for eSales. Important to understand about credentialing. Let's just talk about that for just 1 minute. What credentialing is when a customer logs in, where it looks to validate the password. If a customer logs into ePart or eOffice or eDelivery from the browser, from the ePartConnection.com page or from the ePaperless Office page, the credentials are checked on the management system. Unless it's an AConnex customer, the caveat there is a section that I don't have on mine, which says trading partners table. Then it would check there. But this section, customer options, is used for credentialing for number one, customers that are accessed via eSales. When a salesman goes into eSales BI and he goes to a customer's navigation page, there's two buttons. There's a button for ePart and a button for eOffice. When the salesman clicks ePart, it comes here to validate those passwords. You click on the edit button, and down here you see the store ID, which tells ePart which store to go to, and then the customer's password right here. This is where it looks for credentials for eSales BI. It looks for credentials on the management system for ePart and eOffice when it's accessed directly from the browser. The rest of the information on this screen is used for the CRM portion of eSales, such as the address, city, state, and so forth. That's used for the mapping features in eSales BI. The salesman code, which comes from the management system, is used for creating a customer list by salesman. You'll notice that there's different salesman codes you see in here. Anything with an S is going to be on the customer list for that salesman. These fields are generally imported from the management system. All of our different programming divisions have worked on creating files from the management system that can be either manually imported, or most of them now are going to an automatic import every night. The reason for that is we have customers that add customers, change information, change phone numbers, change salesman code. We want this to affect customer options as soon as they do it on the management system without the customer having to come here and do it manually. This file or this page is searchable by many criteria. I can search by customer number. These are the search criteria that I can use to find a customer. There's also an advanced search where I can search by any of these. If hide cost is turned on, if labor guide is turned on, any of these features, if they're turned on, I can locate customers. If I want to see how many customers have labor turned on, I go to labor guide and I click enabled, and I would search, and it would give me all my customers that have labor guide enabled. Once again, in the edit options, these are some of the options that you can turn on by customer. That you can hide cost. That means this customer, when this customer logs in, he'll never see cost. The reason for that is sometimes an installer has his customer looking over his shoulder, and he'll call the jobber and he'll say, I really don't want my cost to show up because my customers look at this page a lot. So that's when you would turn on hide cost. Labor guide, there's a fee for that. If you enable the labor guide, it's $20 a month per customer. This is where you'd put in labor rate. When you have labor guide enabled and it calls for 2 hours, if the installer is a $20 an hour guy, it'll show $40. Require PO, very easy to understand. Disable stock orders. This disallows this installer from doing stock orders. Here you can set quantity on hand options by customer. When we talked about the quantity on hand options in the original screen, that's the global setting. You can override that global setting on a customer by customer basis, where on your global screen you may say show per car quantity or quantity on hand, whichever is greater. But this one customer goes, I don't like you guys doing that. I never know if you really have it. So for this guy, you would say show actual quantity on hand. So that would override the global option. Account number on eOffice, again, is for the master account. Excuse me, password for eOffice. This is where you put a password. So when the jobber or when the installer is here looking at ePart, there's a link right here to click, which takes you to eOffice. Sometimes the owner of a garage says, my mechanics use ePart all the time, and I really don't want them going into my eOffice account. So that's the case where he would put a password on that, and he would be the only one that would be able to access his invoices in eOffice directly from ePart. That's the purpose of that field. The capability of doing a discount, ePart can do a discount on each invoice. It's a percentage discount. There's another section in here where we set up, where you set up the ePart discounts. I'll go to that Well, actually, I can probably go to that now. ePart discounts. What that does is you put in this square the part number on your system that does a discount. An example would be the Autolog system. We've created a part number called DSC5, which means 5% discount. That part has a special code on it, so when it's extended on a workspace or on an invoice, it automatically does a 5% discount. So you would put the part number here that corresponds to the discount and save that. And then here, when you go into the ePart discount, you would choose what you want that customer to get. This guy, you might want to give him 1% on all his orders. You might want to give him 10%. So this is where you would choose for that customer the discount that you want to give him. And every single ePart order he does, that discount will be applied. eOffice payments, this is where you authorize or where you set this customer how you want him to be able to pay his bill on eOffice, ACH only, or credit card, or both. Um, exclude in sales BI. This this check mark is for possibly having a customer in your customer options, which may be another store, as an example. In a multi-store organization, sometimes you'll have you sell to your other stores, and your other stores have customer numbers. You may not want to include those sales in your grand totals for the store when you're looking at Sales BI. Sales BI has a function that shows sales by the entire store, or it shows sales by each salesman's group of customers. You may want to exclude certain customers from those sales totals. Could be because there's zero margin or low margin and you don't want it to skew your margins. This is where you assign the salesman code to a customer. Ranking code is very, very objective. You can use ranking code for separating your customers. We have one customer that classifies his customers, as an example, as platinum, gold, silver, and bronze based on how much they buy. He put a ranking code in there, and that allows him to look at all his platinum customers. Again, that's useful only in eSales BI. Again, the store ID and password here is where eSales checks for credentials when a salesman logs into ePart or eOffice. And accept PDFs mean it's okay to send this guy PDFs of his statements and invoices. So customer options, once again, its primary use is for eSales BI. It was originally designed for ePart. As soon as a customer logged into ePart, they would get an entry very similar to this top line. It would put their customer number, and that was just about it. That happens automatically if a customer logs into ePart for the first time and he's not in the list already. But the lists you see now, when you see lists of complete customer list, then you get all of the name and address information. I'm going to go to a new customer here just to give you an idea of what their customer options looks like. This is a customer options file that's completely configured. This customer is an eSales customer. You'll notice that it has all of the fields filled in, and it has the salesman codes for all the different salesmen. So when you're looking at customer options, then depending on the use for the customer, then you decide at that point how much of it you need to fill in. If it's not an eSales customer, then this stuff is not that important. Another section in the edit section is promos and favorites. Promos is where you set up a promotion for a customer. When you set up the promotion, it shows up, if you'll notice up here on the top right, as a thermometer. This is a per customer basis. When you click on it, it shows the promotion, and it basically explains what it is. Again, this is a screen that you probably have to kind of walk through and look at, but you have basic criteria. You can set a promo to apply to all sales. Obviously, they have to subscribe to eOffice so we know what they're buying, or internet sales only. You can do it by dollar amount or by units. So this is how you set up a promo. The next option that you saw in there was favorites. What favorites is this allows you to set up an inventory. If you are a jobber and your installers stock inventory that you maintain, This is where you would create a list of that inventory. So when the salesman goes there, he can do a stock order very quickly. And by clicking on the favorite, which may say my inventory, then he can see the quantity that that installer is supposed to have on the shelf. So it's a way to set up uh, a template for that installer's inventory. Parts can be added to it or taken away from it. That's very similar to non-catalog, but it's got a little bit different use, and it's accessed from this favorites tab up here on the top. When you go to favorites, then you can set up, the original intent was for a fleet survey to where you would set up different vehicles. You'd pick the unit, and then it would show you the parts that you usually stock for that vehicle. So if the installer is a fleet guy and he has different trucks for different customers, then Jones Unit 100, he can go to the appropriate vehicle and it'll be a list of the stuff that they usually put on that vehicle, but it's predefined so he doesn't have to look up the parts each time for that vehicle. And again, my inventory, when you do an inventory, it's going to show you how many you're supposed to carry. What it does is the quantity order button. You'll see that this has 6. That means that he's supposed to stock 6 of those. This installer stocks 6 of that filter, and it puts 6 as a default in the quantity order. If they don't need any, they don't check this box. If they have 3 on the shelf, then all they do is check this box. You change this to 3, and you add that to the order. So that's how they would do an inventory order. That would be the purpose of favorites. I think that just about covers customer options. Customer options, one more time, is primarily for eSales BI, and it's where the credentials are saved for accessing ePart or eOffice from eSales BI. These credentials are not used when a customer accesses ePart or eOffice from the browser or from the internet. It does not look at these credentials for that. ePart messages, this is where you can send a message to a customer or groups of your customers. You can create a group, and you can name the group. Then you add a message. You create the message, and when you click Send Email, it'll go to the group that you choose. This is an ePart function. This is for a jobber that may want to send an email to all his customers that says, "We're having a clinic on Delco on Friday. Would like you to attend." Where it'll show up is right here under messages. This has 10 old messages, that's why it's blue. But if there was a new message, this would be red. So as soon as the installer logs in, this tab will be red, and it means that he needs to look at his messages. When I click on it, these are old messages, so we didn't save them. So this will turn red. The next section is discounts that we talked about already. Sales reports. Sales reports, basically you have multiple ways of running sales reports. You can go by billing period, end date, or end of month. End of month, basically, you can pick an end of month date and display the store summary report, and this will show you your sales for that particular period. Also, you can see lost sales here. If there are any lost sales recorded for that period, you'll see that there. Part fulfillment, if the customer is using part fulfillment, which is guys that are connected to like Rock Auto and different, there's a few different scenarios where they use part fulfillment. You'll see there what what part fulfillment orders have gone through ePart, and data transmission is also transmitted orders that came through Autolog Central. This, incidentally, I didn't mean to throw that term out there. Autolog Central is basically what we call the server locations for ePart, eOffice, and all of the internet protocols that are used by our different products go through Autolog Central. eOffice, ePart, eDelivery, it's all what we call Autolog Central. Open order report, this tells you if there are any of your installers that have got orders that they haven't ordered. They may have looked stuff up and just never finished it. You can look at this, and it basically tells you what that installer has looked at but not ordered. It may prompt you to make a phone call, say, what about this stuff? Connection analysis is going to show you how many times each customer is connected. If you select it, what it does is it shows you when they connected, what type of a connection it was. A stock order catalog basically tells you what they did. It tells you how quick it was, and this is your connection analysis, again, by customer. The other option in here is remote IP. What this shows you is when an installer has got multiple computers in his place of business, you're going to get multiple IP addresses. You can see this particular account, 252, has connected from 4 different IPs. The big thing to look for is if it's an IP way outside of range. This is a test account, so you're likely to see things. But you can see that these two probably came from the same building. They're both coming from approximately the same place. When they're a big difference, that means one of two things. That means either somebody's got his password and they're logging in from somewhere else, another state, another country, or whatever. This is just a way to look at the remote, at the IP addresses that they're coming in from. Independent warehouse stock check. If the jobber has a warehouse that he buys from that uses ePart, you would set up his account here at that warehouse. You would just put in here what you want to display, because your customers will see binoculars, and when the customers see in the binoculars, there's going to be a section on the bottom that will be the independent warehouses inventory. The jobber has the capability of allowing his customers to order from the warehouse if he chooses. If he chooses that, it will print a ticket at the jobber store that says this part is for Joe's Garage and it's ordered from XYZ warehouse. At the warehouse will get a ticket that says this part is for Joe's Garage, but please ship it to ABC Auto Parts. So that's where you would enable ordering by warehouse. That is again, this is where you set up your stock check that shows in the binocular window. Retail ePart options. If you have a retail ePart, if you're using a retail ePart, you would enable retail mode. You would tell it the customer number to use, which would be for pricing, and this is where you would set up your PayPal. And you can configure tax rates, shipping rates, and other required fields for your retail ePart account. Again, I invite you guys just to go in here and look around. I'm not going to go through each one. Long location names. This is where you have multiple stores on your system, and you may want to display a different name. A lot of people use this for putting their remote stores, and then in the location name it says allow 1 to 2 days for shipping. They'll put little notes like that in there, so when their customers see that store 6 has it, but it says allow 2 days for shipping, this is where you would record that. Multi-location ordering. Once again, this is the same thing that will allow the customer or the end user to order from the remote stores. This is where you'd set that up. Tool web, we're not doing a lot of tool web, but this is a translation table where you have tool web's line code, and then you would put your line code in. So this is how you get tool web to reflect inventory. When you go to eTools and equipment, it goes outside of ePart to the tool web website. So when you're looking at a part, if the line code is set up, if their line code is set up, then it's going to show you your quantity and pricing, which matches your inventory. So that's basically what tool web is. The next section is eSales BI. The first one, store name and address, is the same as the original one. Manage logos, the same thing. Users and roles. What users and roles is, for eSales BI, you're required to create a user for each person that logs in. We have 3 different types of users. There's a sales user, an administration user, and a counter user. This is where you put in the person's name, you assign the password, and you assign their role, and you also assign the salesman code. Once again, I'm going to go to another one so you can see. what that looks like. You put in the salesman's name or the person's name, you put in their password, and then you put in the code, which is the salesman code in the management system. This is used for creating customer lists by salesmen, and it's used for coming up with the aggregate sales by salesman for all his customers. So that's what users and roles is. Customer options, once again, is the same customer options we looked at. Alerts and notifications. In eSales, they have the capability of seeing alerts when they log in. The reason for alerts is to proactively be able to call and address customer issues before it becomes a big problem. There's three types of alerts. There's a not purchasing, meaning absolutely stopped. There's a below average, which is a trending alert, trending down. There's an over return alert, which is where you set a percentage threshold of returns by customer. Any customer meeting any of those criteria will show up on the opening page of eSales. And when we train a person to use eSales, we say, when your salesman logs in, he needs to look at his alerts first and possibly call these customers right away. We can see a customer that hasn't purchased for 2 days. If it's the 10th of the month and it shows he hasn't bought in 2 days, that guy needs to be called, but under normal circumstances, the jobber wouldn't find out about that until possibly the end of the month, which would be 3 weeks later. So that's the advantage in having alerts. And again, they can set notifications here, which are broadcast to all salesmen. Every time they log in, they'll see any notifications. Goals, you're able to set goals by salesman. You can choose goals by salesperson or by store. I choose salesperson. I'd select the user. I'd set his profit dollar and sales dollar goals, and this will give the sales manager a way to set sales goals for his salesmen and display them every time they log in. Sales groups, this is also new. This is going to be a way to modify the eSales BI graph or the business intelligence graph and group product lines by group. You may have a group called chassis. If you have a group called chassis, then you could put 2 or 3 product lines in that group and they'll be together so the salesman can click on chassis and see how that customer is doing in just chassis related lines. Another possible use for it is new lines. Sometimes the management of a store wants his salesperson to see how brand new lines are performing. So he'll create a group called new lines, and when he goes to a customer, he can see if that customer is buying anything from those lines. So it's basically a shortcut or a way to group lines together for eSales BI. Opportunities is the way to put a website, a link to a website in eSales BI, and it can be an opportunity for the customer or for the salesman. They can put flyers and so forth so the salesman can go out to the customer site, click on the opportunity, and show the customer a flyer on his tablet. The next section is eOffice, again, main page and online bill pay. Online bill pay is to set up the billing, not the billing, to set everything up so a customer can pay his bill online. This is an eOffice only section, and obviously that's why it's labeled eOffice. And that's it. Now's the time for anybody that has any questions to raise their hand. Certainly, if you have any questions or if you want any more detail on any of this, please email me direct. I'll be glad to answer it for you. Again, this was recorded, so I'm going to be sending this recording to everybody so you can review it. I'll be sending it to the whole company. And I don't see any questions, so not to take a... Okay, Charlie has a question. Okay, ePart discount. Charlie's question was about ePart discount. What happens is when a customer buys something, I'm gonna real quick show you what that looks like. I'm pretty sure I have it set up here. When a customer actually buys a part, and gets to where he's finalizing the invoice. Add it to the order. And now I have my order here, and I go to place order. This guy does not have, this one does not have a discount. It would show right here, discount, ePart discount. So there would be another line on this section here that says ePart discount. This is only for ePart orders. Charlie, I've got you unmuted. I've got you unmuted. I don't know why I can't hear you. Okay, just ask me and I'll just. The ticket that prints at the jobber store will show the line on it that's a discount line. It'll actually do it. It'll add it to the invoice as a discount line. And here on the order screen, when they're doing the order, it'll also show it here. So it actually does the discount. When the pick ticket prints at the jobber store, it will have the discount on it. It'll all be done. All the jobber has to do is finalize the ticket. And again, this is a setting that's by customer. Lisa, you had a question?
Yeah, it's in regards to on the edit screen where you have the multi-store or the location QOH display option.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is set to the header is the default, warehouse location. It's the quantity of all locations except the one you're logged into.
Mm-hmm.
So when I do a stock check and I can see in the bottom grid, there's the field, warehouse QOH, but I'm not seeing anything in there.
Well, if the customer is the customer multi-store.
Yes.
Okay. If the customer,
I can see them if I click on the little button that's next to it, warehouse location, you get the little pop-up that shows you the other locations.
Well, this is actually a listing that's inside the catalog. Let me show you real quick.
Right. Like I've gone to the catalog screen.
This see
but
right
I never
here.
see anything populated. Mm-hmm.
Other locations.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. Right.
If depending on how you have that set, number one, and number two is your other locations must be chained. They must be part of the group. This comes from the management system. When the management system returns all the different store quantities, then it will follow those rules.
Okay. And does it always also work when you're on, like when you're just doing a stock check in ePart?
Yes.
Okay, so I should see it there as well.
You should see it there as well. So here, an example on the screen we're looking at, I've got the header is set to QOH other locations, which is what you see there, QOH other locations. And this says this is the total of all locations except the one I'm logged into. So when I go and I look at an example, this one that says 31, and I click on my binoculars, what it's showing me is in my other locations, I've got 31 in stock other than the location I'm in. West Warehouse, Whittier Warehouse, and Demo Auto Parts 1. When you add those up, it's 31. So it's showing me my quantities. I've got the capability of ordering only from these three stores. So if I'm Alex's Garage who's logged in and I click on the binoculars, what this tells me is, okay, the store I'm logged into right now only has one and I need four. So what I can do is I can select this store and I can actually order from that store and it will create an order as in the other store. So that's where the quantity on hand. So you can change.
I'll play with this. I'll play with the setting a bit then, because I'm not seeing my other locations. So I'll just poke around, make sure everything's set up right.
Okay, it's there's normally something that you it's a system setting. It sees the other stores from the management system. So you'd have to.
Right. I see them when I click on the binoculars. I'm just not seeing that total. There's nothing there. Yeah.
That's going to be
So
a
I'll play a
question.
little
That's
bit.
going to be a question for Eric, but we'll look at that. We'll look at
Yeah,
that
okay.
after the fact. Thanks.
Yeah, all right.
Any
Thank
other?
you.
Mm-hmm. Uh, I can't unmute you, Karen. Yes, correct. They have to be set up with the they have to be set up with Karen's question was about uh, the online pay options. Basically, what that means is you have to be set up with either Merchant Partners or Charge It Pro first. I think Merchant Partners is we're not using anymore. It's just Charge It Pro now. So everybody's going to select Charge It Pro. This is the email that the customer will get when they make a payment. You configure, and this is where you put in the criteria that Charge It Pro would give you. Okay, any more questions? Okay, everybody. Well, thank you very much once again, and I will be sending this out to the company. I appreciate you taking your time. We just kept it just under an hour, and again, thank you very much.